everyone, welcome to the Leaderboard. I'm Meg Turney, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Jared Wynne from the Daily Dot. Hello, Jared.
Hi.
It's so exciting talking to you again.
Yeah.
Let's talk about death some more.
Sure.
We spent about 20 minutes before this talking about death. We're not going to talk about that today. All right.
We just did, though.
I know we did, but we're not going to on the show.
In this block of time, we won't do that.
That's okay. Counter-Electric Gaming playing against Team Solo Mid. Over 500,000 people tuned in to watch this match live. Why was it such a big deal, Jared?
Well, CLG and TSM are two big organizations with a long history in League of Legends, and they came into this match with being at the top of the table. So whoever won this was in first place, North America. They could probably go to a big event coming up, a big international event the first place team would go to. So it's a big deal. Riot certainly made it a big deal. They went on for hours and hours prattling about how big of a deal it was. We got Imagine Dragons coming in and playing, to let us know it was a big deal. I wanted Maikelele to show up and do a halftime show.
Just lick something and then walk away.
Exactly. Yeah, that's that's my first thought. I think about that every day, actually. I hope Maikelele just shows up and licks something and then walks away. That's my daily thought.
I don't want to take it back to death, but that should be what your tombstone says. I hope that Miley Cyrus shows up and licks something.
Yeah.
And walks away. Okay.
Like the tombstone.
Let's talk about why this match went so incredibly wrong for one team.
For CLG, yeah, they got up to a big lead. They got 4 dragons and a Baron. That's a substantial lead in League of Legends. You should not be able to throw that away. And then they threw it away. They just had fuck up after fuck up. They had team fight loss after team fight lost. I mean, it was a calamity. It really, truly was. It was awful. And yet, it was somehow appropriate. Because if CLG is going to lose, it should be this way. It should be showing off great potential and promise and doing very well, and then just crashing down like a fucking meteor. That's the CLG way.
They flew too close to the sun.
They did, as they tend to do, and they came down. And TSM, nice win for them. It was a clutch win, but they got outplayed. They just didn't throw. That was the big difference here. It was a great match, though. It was a fantastic match. Somehow, it actually lived up to the billing that Riot gave it. It was a great match to watch.
We were talking about this beforehand. People were actually tweeting, it's going to take a miracle for them to fuck this up. Yes. So it's like the miracle of fuck-ups that they pulled off.
Yes, it was a miraculous throw by CLG. That's the CLG miracle, actually. The CLG miracle isn't something you accomplish. It's something you throw away, which is a strange kind of miracle.
What a terrible thing to be known for.
When joined, actually, was Dyrus of TSM after the match, gave an interview with Riot's analyst, and he said, you know what? I actually feel bad for them. He felt bad. That doesn't help you when you throw a match and your opponent's like, you know what? I feel bad for those guys.
No, that's horrible. That's even worse.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that.
I pity you.
I appreciate your pity after I threw away the 4-dragon Baron lead that I had in the professional match with over 500,000 people watching combined different streams.
Have any of them, did anybody get a hug, or how are they doing now that they've lost?
There's no hugs in the LCS.
There's no
only big plays.
Just a double salute. You're done.
Yes.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. They're still doing pretty well.
Yeah, they got second.
They actually played well up to second in a match between two teams.
Well, but I mean, overall.
Overall, that is true. Yeah, they're doing very well in the season. We'll see how this. Maybe this is the big slide here. It's like the beginning of the end.
Oh, I feel like it's all bad news for them. I'm so sorry, you guys.
They're okay.
We talked last week about the European LCS team Meet Your Makers being in trouble because the team manager had been recorded intimidating one of his own players. We talked about this on the Know. We talked about this over here. It was a big story. Basically, he said that the player's mother would lose her house if he left the team. So where did we leave off? We left off that it had been recorded and Meet Your Makers hadn't made a statement yet when we talked last week.
We had something happening, but we didn't know what.
Right.
It turns out that the manager was fired by the organization, and they kind of said, well, no one else really knew what was going on. We didn't know. That's not true, though. Other people did know what's going on. So it's a funny situation. They kind of washed their hands of it after firing the manager. Like, oh, we're so contrite now. After the CEO said something to the effect of, I can be a bad guy if I have reason to be.
Yeah, there are bad people in esports. I'm bad too, but only if people give me reasons.
Yeah.
Who are you?
And he also told some of the players, or one of the players, your ass belongs to me, something like that. I mean, just,
He seems like a bad guy. And then there was evidence that he was coaching people on how to talk PR-wise, what we're going to be saying.
Yeah, and you wonder where the attitude this manager had to where the player comes from. It comes from the top. It comes from the CEO.
Right.
But, they fire the manager and then Riot acts like, oh, it's all good now. They fired the guy. No problem. Here's a 5,000 euro fine.
Which seems so little. It seems like the tiniest fine. Also, this guy's banned indefinitely that was fired. But it just seemed like I was reading, they were saying this guy was, when he recorded the conversation, Folly was the one freaking out, Corey was the one being freaked out on, but there was another guy in the room, and they were like, in their statement, they were like, well, the players really like him, so we're not going to get rid of him.
Like, well, he was intimidated too, Meg. I mean, he was.
What?
I know.
He didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, it's a little bit silly, but Rotterdam being indefinitely suspended is kind of a scapegoat type of thing at this point. And the fine was about what you get for poaching. I think this is a little bit more serious than a poaching offense, like in the offseason. I think this is another step above it. This is like player safety and the health of the players involved. You have like a 17, 18-year-old who's being intimidated by people who were, 15 years a senior, being told his mother's going to lose the house. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's obviously an organizational problem because you see the quotes from the CEO, and yet we're going to act like now that the manager's gone, it's all better, it's all fixed, and we're just going to give you a slap on the wrist, and it's all going to be better from now on. There's no way. I don't know why a player would go here. Of course, they want to play in the LCS. They want to get paid. You're going to go here if you have to. But it's a toxic situation. And to think that it's going to be all better because they fired the manager and then Riot suspended him indefinitely is ridiculous. I mean, that guy, Rotterdam, he's not going to get a job in esports anytime soon.
No.
Like, he's clearly in the wrong here, and he clearly will not be. He's been punished appropriately, but the punishment wasn't enough. Like the organization itself needs to be punished further than this. Again, it's a slap on the wrist what they gave them. It's just. It's not right, Meg.
No, and I was surprised by Riot's statement because it seemed like they kind of pushed a lot of the blame on Corey himself. They were like, well, actually, Corey was the one who didn't provide payment information, so this whole thing could have been avoided had he given them information. So we found that if they were really both at fault, but that's not what we're saying here. Like, the debate wasn't whether or not he'd been paid. That's where it started. But it was taken to a whole nother level when he got absolutely bullied, and Riot, I feel like, missed a huge opportunity here to make an example.
Yes, there was a tax issue at hand with regards to his not being paid before, but that's, as you said, an entirely different subject.
Right.
Like, we're talking about player treatment and behavior towards players and having a 17-year-old or 18-year-old in your gaming house and treating them fairly, treating them in a healthy way, not just fairly, but being a respectable person to them, a respectable human being. That's the problem here, and it goes well beyond whether or not he filed the right tax information with the organization. So it is ridiculous for them to take that perspective as well. Again, I think the manager was made the scapegoat, but it's clear that this is an organizational problem, not a problem of just this one guy who is a bad apple in an otherwise great apple tree. Like that's not what's going on here. So I feel bad for the players involved. I suspect that everything will be nice and squeaky and clean for a while. But how long is it going to be? A month until this sort of thing trickles down again? I mean, it's going to happen again. It's going to. You don't change the culture by giving a €5,000 fine. Right.
So what did Corey decide to do? He was still deciding when Riot released their statement whether or not he was going to stay with the team.
Well, at the filming of this episode, it's still being determined what exactly is going to happen. It could be that he goes to another team in the European LCS. We'll have to see.
All right. We will move on from that because that is a story that made me so pissed off to keep reporting. And people got after me saying, like, he's not a kid. You can't call him bullying kids. You're 18, you're a kid. Like, you're a kid in my eyes.
Especially when you're being talked to by a 33-year-old who is, like, who's punching walls and doors.
That recording made me so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable.
That's.
I'm glad we agree. Okay. One of the biggest teams in Counter-Strike that has the best name, in my opinion, Ninjas in Pajamas, have decided to look for a new fifth player. But there's a little bit of a problem because they still haven't kicked out their current fifth player. Let's talk about this poor baby.
On the subject of organizations not treating players very well, let's talk about the guy who was brought in. Maikelele was brought in to replace Fifth Lauren. Played pretty well. He's had some up and downs and some inconsistencies, but overall he's played very well, actually. He got MVP at one tournament they went to. They've definitely been on an upswing with him. They won a tournament. They got runners-up at a major. At the X Games Invitational, they got runners-up. So they've played quite well with Maikelele, and now they're going to replace him. Potentially. Maybe.
While he's still on the team.
While he's still on the team. They've openly started holding tryouts for other fifth players while still saying, you know what, we might keep him, maybe, if we feel like it.
I hate that.
But the players think we might need to look for a replacement. We could do better. But maybe we'll keep him.
That's such, I feel like that's such mind games. Like, what's going on behind the scenes that they're like, oh yeah, we don't need you. We'll replace you.
And it's a funny thing because in the past, this organization has been thought of as, like, the most solid of organizations in Counter-Strike because they had this one team of 5 for so long. They were so successful. Even when they had some struggles, they didn't split initially. Like they're the paragon of behavior, right, in Counter-Strike. And now they're doing this, and it's just absurd. And there's no good explanation for it. I mean, there's no way to know what's going on here. They've defended him personally in the past. Get Right has gone on record saying his attitude's great. He fits in with the team very well. And if that's not a problem, and his performance is not a problem, they said, like, well, it's an issue where his experience is lacking on the big stage. Well, to get experience on the big stage, you put a player on the big stage and you play with him.
Right.
And if his performance is up to par and his attitude's good and he fits in, what's the problem? We're obviously not getting something that's going on there. And they're bringing in other talents, like Delpan came in to try out. He's the first player they tried out, who's a very similar player to Maikelele, except I think he's probably less dynamic. He's not as fresh. I think he's a bit of a downgrade, actually, potentially anyway. So it's a strange thing. It really is a weird thing, actually. I don't have any answers for you as to why they're doing this, because it goes against their track record, and there's no obvious reason that we can see as to why it's going on. And Maikelele is upset about it. That's pretty clear, because he immediately tweeted after the news came out, like, I hope the organization can confirm it's not about my bad attitude, because he's had some attitude problems in the past, and he wanted to clarify, hey, it's not about that. And the organization did not really clarify that. They just said on a Swedish news site they have some stake in, actually, by way of their social media manager, that they're looking for a new player because the old players don't really think this guy fits. It's a weird situation. It really is.
So weird.
It's very strange.
We talked about this. I don't want you to salt old wounds, but we did talk about Flea Florin not being the best, and they kept him for quite a while, even when he was the lowest ranked player in the league.
Yeah, whatever people think of his contributions, and he did contribute in some ways. He did slump for an extended period of time, and they stuck by him while they were being successful. It was not until they had a significant slump of their own that they decided to go in another direction. That's why this is so strange, because they've proven that they're willing to stand by a player who is friendly to them and who works well with them, and they say that Maikelele works well with them and is friendly to them. They say there's no problem there with the chemistry, and yet here we are. So what is the issue here? It's very strange, and again, part of why it's so strange is because it's from this organization.
Right.
Of course, they've had issues like this, or similar to this, with League of Legends, for example, and other games. It hasn't creeped into Counter-Strike yet, so maybe this is just the final straw. Like, now it's come full circle. And even the Counter-Strike team that once had so much success is going to feel the effects of esports drama.
Can't get away from it.
With capital letters. E-D.
No, tiny E.
Tiny
E, big D. Big D. Wink. All right, that's it for the leaderboard. Let's end it on a dick joke. Why not? Join us next time when we'll talk about all sorts of esports drama. I want to say thank you to my guest, Mr. Jared Wynne from the Daily Dot. Thank you so much, Jared. And we'll see you next time. GG, everyone.
Thanks for clapping.